Hey friends, welcome back to my garden. Today it is officially Harvest Napa Cabbage Day, and I am so excited to show you what I harvested. Now, if you remember all the way back to my very first garden vlog, I started 6 Napa cabbages. They all grew really well, and I transplanted them to the garden. And I used this net to try to keep them super safe from the cabbage moths. And it has been like a whole journey to get to this point. I planted these Napa cabbages with the sole purpose of harvesting them and making them into kimchi. So this is from seed to harvest, and that makes me feel very proud. As a new gardener, I tried cabbage last year and failed miserably, so to actually be successful this year really meant a lot to me. You really do grow as you garden. You learn every year, and you learn from your mistakes. So once I get this cloth pulled back, we're going to get harvesting. Now I'm not harvesting all of them. I'm only harvesting 2 today. And this one right here was the biggest one that I grew so far. Now the rest of them, they're still growing. So we're going to see what happens with those. But this one was a monster. So I cut it loose and I picked off some of the dead leaves, and in a second I'm going to give you a really good view of this thing. It is huge, and at the end of this video I'm going to weigh them and show you what I ended up with just these 2 Napa cabbages that I harvest. I was looking at the bottom of it and I found a little, well, I won't call him a friend, a little pest. Slugs. So definitely I need to put more Sluggo down. And I was right with my original thought that it was slugs eating this stuff up. As I said before, it is kind of just one of those things. I used old rotted wood to make my garden beds last year. I was working with what I have, and with rotting wood, mulch, anything like that, slugs and snails can be a problem. That's almost comical, me trying to fit that cabbage in that basket. I decided to also harvest the smallest Napa cabbage, the one that I showed in the last garden vlog that had just been beaten up by bugs and slugs and snails and stuff. In fact, here's a snail. No, I didn't kill it. I just tossed it over the fence. I don't have the heart to do that sort of thing. But even though this is pretty picked at by the bugs, once I pulled off the outer leaves, there was still a pretty decent sized cabbage in the center of it that was practically untouched. All I'm going to do is pull these bug-bitten leaves off. Look how lacy they are. I'm going to pull them off and I'm going to lay them in the bed. And just kind of let them break down, because once all these cabbages are harvested, this is where my black beans are going to go. And I will add some more soil compost, stuff like that to it. So I'm just going to bury this stuff underneath the soil and let it rot. Feed the garden bed, so to speak. But you can see, even after pulling all that off, I still ended up with a pretty decent little cabbage. I'm not sad about it. I'm not disappointed at all. It could have been worse. It could have been a total loss. And instead, I still ended up with, a nice little cabbage. Figured while I was here, I would go ahead and harvest some more kale. I have harvested off this kale 3 times now. Um, the first time I harvested really heavily, I gave it away to my mother-in-law. The second time I harvested heavily, I ended up with a 1-gallon freezer bag of Scotch kale and a 1-gallon freezer bag of dino kale after I cleaned it and soaked it and chopped it all up. Um, Spoiler alert, after this harvest right here, I ended up with another gallon bag of Scotch kale. And I just added the dinosaur kale into the same bag that I had already put some in. And the reason I'm just freezing all of this kale is because I plan to grow kale again in the fall, and I know kale is a lot sweeter in the cooler temperatures, and since our temperatures are kind of all over the place, the kale still tastes good, but it's not as sweet as it potentially could be. So I'm going to save the fall kale for fresh eating, and all of this stuff that I'm harvesting now that I'm freezing, I'll use in soups or stews, or if I get a whole bunch more harvest of it before it starts to bolt or whatever, I'll just dehydrate it and turn it into kale powder and add that to smoothies or sneak it into soup. Nobody'll even know it's there. It's a really great way to sneak greens into your family without them knowing it. But I'm pretty happy so far with how much these 4 kale plants have given me. And I think 2 of each type was just the perfect amount. On this day that I recorded this, I was actually trying to get done with all the garden work before a storm blew in. So I'll give you a quick tour really quick of what I've got going on. I wanted to show you this beautiful borage. And when they say you plant borage once and never plant it again, they mean it. Because do you see on this flower these little black bits right here? Kind of looks like a bird beak. Those are all the seeds. This is how I ended up with borage 20 feet away from where I had it planted last year. I don't mind though, the bees love it. My little cluster of super sweet 100 tomatoes, and this plant has officially woken up. It has clusters of blooms all over it, so we should be getting some yummy cherry tomatoes anytime now. And while I'm down on this corner, I wanted to show you my accidental squash. It has a female flower on it and a bunch of male flowers. So I'm going to have to catch this early in the morning and see if I can help this thing pollinate. At least get one squash thing off of this before the squash bugs get it. The other ones don't look great at all, but that's okay. My tomatoes look fabulous. In fact, this one is coming along nicely. And as I walked down this row, I noticed every single tomato plant had flowers on it, and some of them even have teeny tiny baby tomatoes. So that made me really excited. My tomatillos. I am probably going to be giving away tomatillos this year because look at all of these little paper husks where they have been fertilized. These plants are going to be falling over, but that's okay. I'm supposed to borrow some tomato cages from my sister-in-law, and we'll get all of these guys propped up properly before they have a chance to fall over and break. Green beans are looking great. My peppers, I'm really unsure of. Some of the new growth on them looks dark green and really good and healthy. Some of them look like they're struggling a little bit. I'm just going to leave them alone and see what happens. Hopefully the weather will straighten itself out and they'll recover. I did harvest the cucamelons that I showed you guys last week. There's still some more on there that are recent additions. It was the first time we'd ever tasted cucamelons, and we all loved it. It was like the perfect combination of cucumber and lime. I'm told that this is going to be a volunteer for me every year now, and after tasting them, I'm totally okay with that, and so are my girls. They really liked them. My sugar snap peas have appreciated the weather being a little cooler, and in fact, seem to be bouncing back pretty well. There are many hanging on this one little plant. I need to go out and try to train it up the trellis a little better so it's not flopped over. But yeah, I counted like 6 snap peas before I quit counting. All of my herbs look okay. My dill was still struggling. I never pruned it after I showed it to you guys last week, so I figured I'd go ahead and pull some of this off. I need to come and harvest some of it because it's getting really tall and I'd rather it be like bushier and not go to seed immediately. I'd like to wait until I have some cucumbers for it to start putting on blooms. My snapdragons are beautiful. The ones that I thought somehow were going to be yellow and purple ended up being this beautiful pink color. Okra. Jeez. Look at this dude. I think that's probably going to be ready in about 3 more days. Everybody tells me with okra, if you blink, it's too big. So I'll probably be harvesting at least a couple of them very soon. Here's a different color of snapdragons. These guys are yellow. I just love the little hint of blush on the top lip of the snapdragon. I think that these are probably going to be my new favorite garden flowers, if I'm being honest, and I see a bunch of them in my future next year. And now I'm going to go ahead and weigh these napa cabbages because I was just super curious. So I start off with the small one, and it ended up being just a little over a pound. Once I got it situated, it was just barely over a pound, which, hey, that's about the size of the ones that you get at Walmart. And for the bigger one, I had to get a bowl, and when I weighed it, it ended up being just over 4 pounds, which is phenomenal. It is going to make a lot of kimchi, so I hope my family is ready for that. But that's all I have for you this week, friends. I hope you enjoyed your time with me in the garden today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jen. I make cooking, canning, and food preservation videos every Tuesday, and I also do garden vlogs every Friday. If you're into that sort of content, I really hope you'll consider subscribing and sticking around. We'd love to have you, and we have a really great group of people here. Until next time, friends, happy gardening.